so many people are just kind of needing to be heard. You know, the insecure, I need to jump in and try and say something or sell something because I'm not comfortable not doing that. That's my thing. And that's a turnoff.
Don't assume the no right away. Like one thing that sales really helped me with was every no gets you closer to a yes, right? Or understand the no. The no is your best friend.
If you're not going to spend it on evaluation, what are you going to spend that money on? Are you wondering how learning and development and operations can work more closely together or even function as a separate vertical within your organization? Well, then this is the episode for you. Friends, today we have an amazing guest, Spencer Lyon, who's going to share all about how he's been able to do this and how these two seemingly very different, very opposite parts of an organization can actually collaborate and work together to drive business success. But first, before we get into all of that, you know me, your girl has got to do some updates. Last week, we had our webinar, Kirkpatrick and AI. So catch the replay using the link below. And I want to know more. What do you want to learn more about? What should we do next on our next webinar? So feel free to send us a note, comment on our social media posts, email me, all the different ways that I'm around, and let us know what you want to know more about. The next thing is we still have that Kirkpatrick community that you have to be a part of. The Kirkpatrick community is unlike anything I have ever personally experienced in terms of a community. It's the one thing that I have to say was the best thing that came to me when I came over to the Kirkpatrick world was just how kind and loving and helpful everybody has been. And that we took to the next level through the summit, where actually Spencer was at, and he can share more about that. But also we're now ready to take that to life online. So if you've been looking for a place where you can connect with people that want to do more, they want to drive business success, they want to talk about learning and performance and evaluation, our community is for you. Don't forget, we also have the toolkit. So we have a crash course of the Kirkpatrick model, as well as all the tools and templates straight from us to help you get evaluation off the ground. Two more things. We have a refresher course for any of our bronze or silver certification participants on October 26th. So make sure you register for that. And don't forget, if you have not been certified, you've been thinking about it, we have one starting at the end of October. Remember, it's the Halloween special I'm very excited about. Then, of course, perfect timing. We've got Spencer here to talk more about the summit, and we've got the summit in 2025. It is officially open and looking for our first round of speakers. And we also have enrollment open for attendance. So if you got the FOMO from 2024 and missing out, which you definitely missed out, 2025 is right around the corner. It'll truly be here faster than we all know it. And so make sure you register for the summit. But again, we are looking for speakers right now. All right, y'all, it is time. Let's talk a little bit and meet Spencer. So Spencer Lyon is a sales professional gone corporate. Soon after starting a career in the staffing industry, Spencer transitioned from working in the business on the desk to wanting to work on the business and help others. This journey has now led Spencer to become the head of L&D and sales operations for a global life sciences consulting firm. His mission is to bridge the gap between how L&D can make the biggest impact on the organization while constantly seeking to improve operational effectiveness. With a unique mindset and passion for technology, he has been able to deliver effective corporate onboarding strategies, leadership programs, and overall upscaling courses that drive growth. And you were able to make it to the summit. How did you find the time?
Delegation. Making sure you have good people around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. People ask me all the time, how do you do what you do? Not a lot of sleep, a lot of Cuban coffee, and delegation for sure.
Cuban coffee is the life that drives us.
It is. I love watching people when they first have it for the first time. They don't even realize that this could be a legal thing. They're like, how is this even legal? I'm like, well, I don't
Jet
know.
fuel. It's jet
but
fuel.
It is good. It is. It is. Well, Spencer, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And Jim, my friend, how are you?
I'm good, and it's nice to be with you, the two of you, and Danielle in the background. And I remember the first talk I had with Spencer. Two things really stood out. One is
Tell me.
that he has equal professional experience in the operations area and in the L&D area, and we rarely. I can't remember the last time I had someone that had a really good balance of that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Tell me more about why that excites you.
yeah. The second thing is he really didn't know much about Kirkpatrick. He hadn't gone through any of our bronze programs. I'll say, "What's wrong with you? You haven't gone through any of our training?" He said, "No, but I've heard there's a Kirkpatrick model, and you're probably related to it." So it was fresh that what he really did to educate himself was to read our 2016 book. And right, Spencer, you jumped right into that, and as you do with a lot of things.
Yeah, it was it was funny because when I stumbled across it, I was at a ATD webinar looking for recommendations on books. Every time I go to some sort of learning event, webinar, course, interaction, I ask for recommendations on things. And your book was recommended. And from there, it just kind of went down the rabbit hole and just realizing that this is it's almost like validation to a lot of like the work I've put in around this, and the fact that the Kirkpatrick model had been around for so long, with this ideology that I felt like I was blazing a path, and once we kind of came across each other's path, it seemed like, this is a refreshing piece of information that really helped me just validate this to a lot of the people I was working with as well. Right. It's constantly trying to get their buy-ins, approvals, and get me involved. And I was like, here, see, this is why and how it can work. Right, guys, and gave me a little bit of an extra oomph behind the argument.
I love that. I also appreciate your tenacity to learn and show that you can take something that you read and bring it to life. And what I also really love about this statement, which I think is such a testament to the model, Jim. So here's me giving you all of the praise, is it felt intuitive and validating to something that was already happening, right? So often when we think of like frameworks and models, these are new things I have to put in and I have to put into place, and I've got to learn something completely different and change how I do things. Where in fact, I think the beauty of the model is these are things that instinctively you may be doing. There may be tweaks that you have to do along the way, but this is an accessible model to everybody. And my perception is that if it's accessible to your seniorest of stakeholders, your C-level officers, your VPs, that they can understand and get behind it, implementation and buy-in become just a whole lot easier.
100%. And that's like one of the key factors, I think, when it comes to launching programs or implementing change in anything, like trying to achieve a certain goal. The quicker you get the understanding, that buy-in, the faster you can get to the results you're trying to achieve.
Very cool. So tell me more about your start. So what kind of sales did you do? I'm very interested in how you went from sales to L&D.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I tripped and fell into the staffing industry as one does, and really found a love for it very quickly. Love the fact that you could legitimately make a difference in people's lives while making a really decent living. And so I started off in finance and accounting staffing, anything from your entry level bookkeeper to your chief financial officer. And then from there, it was a smaller firm. I had the opportunity to work very closely with the founders and the CEO, and was doing pretty decent. I love being out in the field. I love talking to people, had that strong passion for it. And then, but one thing I noticed was a lot of people would come in and go, right? Staffing is a hard business. It does require a lot of people interactions, a lot of communication, and it can bring a lot of unique challenges. So after seeing so many people struggle, I had the opportunity to transition into more of like a support role, which really kicked off my L&D side. From there, I worked really closely with an L&D person who I helped develop content with him. I helped him roll out programs. I was more on the back end, and he was a little different. And that's when like my curiosity really got the best of me. There was some things that I thought were really great, and there was other things that I thought really needed improvement. Right. And so from there, just started chipping away at certain processes, different trainings, different courses. Ended up, this is where things really changed. I ended up leaving to start a business of my own with a partner of mine in a completely separate world, but still required me to be in front of people, educating them on helping how they improve their own process, which is in the real estate software space. Took that business to a really good level, met a lot of different people and dug even deeper of how do you take someone from a place where they feel like they need help, or maybe don't even realize that they need help, and change the way they look at the processes that they put in place for themselves to reach that level of success. So from there, got more in depth into training people, coaching people, and developing these operational efficiencies. Ended up coming back to staffing after that, and really started to grow and develop from there. All my programs now have helped my companies reach really high levels of success, especially during COVID. COVID was like, what do they say? Learn by fire. Forget that saying. Or
trial by fire.
Trial by fire. There you go.
Yeah.
And that really helped push along a lot of programs too that I got a lot of resistance on. There was a real light at the end of the tunnel there, because you're coming from a business that required people interaction. I remember when I first started, I was like mandated to interview people in person, right? And like it wasn't counted as like credits. You wasn't going towards your numbers if you didn't meet them in person, right? And look at us now, right? Think about what COVID did to that mindset, right? And the resistance to the digital world. And then how do you go about then educating a workforce on how to then take advantage of, let's say, a virtual environment that then gets over that perception or that limited belief that if you don't meet in person, you can't gain the same level of information from them, right? And that's a small piece of different little things that then started making a move to helping us during COVID actually have one of our highest revenues ever, putting us into a position of scaling even more offices across country, and just really, really helped us grow and become something different. And that's when I got to Discover after that. They were chasing me for a few months, finally decided to make the leap. And now we're on a global operation trying to really make an impact on the life sciences world. So
life sciences is where I got my start. So we'll have to chat afterwards.
Absolutely.
I want to just quickly touch on something that you said. The program resistance, COVID helped with getting some of those programs pushed through. Can you speak a little bit more about what that was like?
Yeah. Well, besides it being a terrifying time where you never really knew, you absolutely did not know what was going to happen. I've always been more of a forward thinker, technologist, leveraging different tools to be able to help really make that those efforts go further, right? You think about like how people do outreach and how they connect with people. How can we maximize that without becoming spam? How can we enhance the human interactions and dive deeper with people by leveraging these tools? So the resistance was a lot around, I don't like using the word old school, but a lot of practices that came from, tenured professionals who felt that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And that really bothered me, right? If everyone thought that way, we would still have, let's say, horses and carriages, right? Those weren't broke by any means. They worked fine, right? But people saw and wanted to innovate on making things better. Right. So I kind of try to have that mindset of like, okay, yes, you're right. It's not broken, but can it be better? Right. So from that, and I would say pestering and being annoying, and really just driving different things to my C-suite and the owners, it gave me pieces along the way. Right. And then once COVID hit, I was like, I've been preaching this for a while. Can I have a bigger shot now to make a bigger change? Right. And they kind of didn't have a choice at that moment to anything else besides trust that I was going to be able to make that influence around everybody. Now, so it did help me in a way that allowed for everyone to just kind of lean in. They had nothing else to lose, right? It kind of gave them that they were on the cliff edge and the only choice was jump, right? Yeah. But through that and through being able to then show them those incremental changes with positive results over time, now the buy-in got even better. So that makes me think you don't need some sort of catastrophe to get people to jump. You just need that first step and those results to then make the next steps moving forward, right? So that kind of just helped me now how I go about running new programs or building things. It's like, okay, give me the chance to make the first step. Let's find what that first step's going to be, understand what we're doing, decide what end goal we want to try to accomplish, and then work backwards to then understand each step moving forward, right? And through that, I've been able to do a lot more.
I'm curious about two words I'm going to mention that you just mentioned. I consider you with a strong self-esteem. Yeah, you look at you. Look at him just kind of laying back there. There he is. That's Spencer, like him or not. But bold for what you're doing, but not needing to be the center of attention. You're way beyond that. Now, you use two words, pestering and annoying people to get things. Would you mind describing what that is in a positive way of what you do to go beyond what a lot of people are comfortable doing?
Yeah. And you brought up the word comfort, right? One thing, you do your best learning and or your best growing outside your comfort zones, right? So if you feel like there's something you need to discuss, there's somebody that needs to get an approval on, right? And you're uncomfortable in a moment to reach out, that's the best time to reach out, right? And then that's the moment to then go and push past that and be like, excuse me, I just want to interject for something. I need to be able to give you this feedback. Is it all right if I kind of have this conversation with you, right? So it's always just about making sure that you don't let someone else's thoughts that you have no idea what's happening in their head control the actions that you have control over, right? I think one of my favorite quotes was, someone else's opinion is none of your business, right? Where that kind of mental hurdle that you put in front of yourself should never stop you from continuing to push and move the needle for yourself. Right. And it's really hard because people don't want to be judged. They don't want to be like put into a negative light, but you should always continue to push yourself past that. If anything, if that's the thought you're having, use it as fuel instead of as a brake. Right. To then go and understand what those thoughts are versus assumptions. Right. So me saying pestering and annoying was just me saying, don't hold back. Right. Like, keep pushing the conversation, keep bringing data, keep making sure it's educated, leave the emotions to the side, never let that, really sway that conversation. But if there's something that you believe in, you got to keep pushing that line forward.
And Spencer, you obviously have a strong EQ as well. It isn't like you're just going to go ahead. If they're roiling and flopping, you're just going to plow through. You can sense what to do and what adjustments to make. And I try and live by a motto that says, don't say no for people, and a lot of times, as often as not, I'll try and say, well, they'd probably say no, but I might as well ask for it, or might as well ask if, and I'm really surprised. Sometimes they say, I'd be glad to, or yeah, I think that's a good idea, but don't say no for people is also what I think you're saying that would talk people out of even trying to do what you're talking about with your with your assertive approach.
Exactly. Don't assume the no right away. Like one thing that sales really helped me with was every no gets you closer to a yes, right? Or understand the no. The no is your best friend, right? Some of the things we use in word tracks, because again, it's not an easy sell in our world. So people are going to get resistance, right? But it's not about, if you do get that no, it's not, no doesn't mean, I don't want to say no means no, but no, there's a reason behind it. Let's try to understand what is the influence behind that. So then I can then go get more educated, better understand, and then reapproach, right? So all of that, even the sales world has helped me really kind of take all that and then realize it's nothing personal. There's something there that I need to investigate and learn why. And then through that, you can develop even more efficient ways through understanding, right? That's like true consultative selling that we try to bring to the table here.
My daughters started school on 2 weeks ago, and they have to read 20 minutes every day. They realized that their books were all like from basically when they were born. And so it's like, guys, I think we need to like set up our game, and they're like, I was like, if you read a lot, you're going to be the smartest kid in the class. Not necessarily true, but that's what I'm telling them. So they read. And so I myself, because I'm a collector of books that sit on my shelf and then I don't read them, I did pick up one yesterday. And one of the things that you shared was essentially one of this is Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David about mastering the art of business strategy. And in his introductory, not paragraph, chapter, I can talk to you. Use your haters and doubters to drive you, right? And I think that's the same sort of message. If we let everybody's hesitancy and things like that be stop us, we would never, to your point, never get anywhere. Like, this Steve Jobs would not have been out there with the iPod or the iPad or the iPhone or anything like that. And so we just have to understand and know, like, that we can use that as education and fuel to continue to move forward. And the other thing that I heard you say, which my biggest regret in life was not being in sales, like a true sales job, because I think that it's a skill set that we all benefit from, no matter what you do at work. And it's, even though no is no, there is still a reason behind it. And if you're able to uncover more of the reason why behind it, it helps you improve your product and improve your pitch and improve the conversation. So, we all know what's happening right now in the learning space. Like, everybody left and right is getting let go. It's just a fact. Like, budgets are being slashed left and right. And, I was thinking about it as you were talking, I'm like, well, that it's in my world, right? Like, I'm thinking about when I'm on a sales call, if someone says no, because we don't have the budget, right? I need to understand, like, you have a budget though, right? Like, there is money you're going to be spending. If you're not going to spend it on evaluation, what are you going to spend that money on? Because that's going to help me, number one, craft my messaging into and be able to, well, that says to me, I didn't do a good enough job talking about the value of evaluation and how it's at, how it could support, but then also understand the market better, right? And understand the person on the other side better and what they value, so that I can ensure that I'm crafting my message appropriately. I think it speaks a lot to, Jim, the work that you did with the Silver program, right? And doing those presentations and really being able to uncover the reason why for people and what they value, and helping to rise, to embed that in the conversation.
Let me jump in there. That is so wise. Way to go, Vanessa.
I'm wise beyond my years.
Yeah. And Spencer, in our work, we use, in our industry, L&D industry uses the word stakeholders. It's always, how do we please the stakeholders? Well, rarely do they identify who they are. And I think the assumption is always the person at the very top of the heap. How do we get their buy-in? How do we please them? But I think it's important to break that down, because a whole lot of other people at different levels have a stake in what's going on. And now you popped something else on us today. You said you were a CFO. So would you mind just briefly talking about how you demonstrate value to line managers, to higher level people, to a CFO or whatever, because it should vary. It's not always the same kind of evidence, same kind of story that they need.
Yeah. So I can use a recent example, especially around, let's say, wanting to achieve a certain goal, and needing, let's say, different resources to achieve that goal. After, let's say, we want to, let's say, get our people to communicate more with potential companies out there. How do we go about doing that? Okay, is it that we need to talk to more people? How do we go about talking to more people? How do we set up more meetings? Are we scheduling meetings? Are we doing cold calls? Are we doing? So it comes from questioning the whole thought process from the beginning, right? So let's say leadership or the senior stakeholders from the CEOs or the two partners that are running the business ask for something. We need them to reach out to more clients. Okay, let me run with that idea, right? Then I go to each individual, let's say, team lead. How do you think we can reach out to more people? Okay, perfect. Then I go to report back. Then I talk about the tooling or resources needed. Then I get into the costs, right? So now we're going from an idea of we need our teams talking to more people to engaging from your entry level person to the finance side of things, right? And trying to understand what the process is. Where's the pain point? And one of the really good questions to ask, I think, is why do you think we're not reaching out to enough people? Or do you think that there's a broken piece somewhere in our outreach process? So now the selling points go from to my line managers. Okay, I can help your team now reach out to more people with less time, and ensure, let's say, the quality of that meetings. To then approaching finance, here's a tool that's going to cost this much per person. But if that reaches this goal in this period of time, then we've more than paid for it, right? Mm-hmm. So now I can go then back to C-suite, the final decision makers, and be like, okay, finance approves that if we do this and achieve these revenue goals, then this tool pays for itself. Here's the time I need to work with each team to then generate that based off of what I'm getting from each tool. And now I've tied together that piece with line managers and finance in a full circle to then try to, let's say, run a demo or do a trial. They've given me that, like I said earlier, right? You've given me the first mile to run. Let me get the time. And now we can go into let's say long distance and see how we can continue to push this down the business.
Very good.
It just comes from multiple conversations. It has to, from an idea from top to then running it through the entire line, right? Now that can be time consuming in ways, and having teams and everything else can help. But as you do it more and more often, people start to recognize what you're doing and the importance of having these conversations. So every time I do this with a new thing, a new process, a new trial, people start to buy in quicker and quicker. Now that my rapport is starting to build, I can get even things done at a different pace than when it was when they, let's say, didn't have that trust factor.
What happens when you get a new stakeholder, though? Don't you have to rebuild all of that trust?
That's a really good question. New, it's funny, onboarding is always a very interesting case, right? Like a new person into the business, depending on what level they're coming in on, it requires different things, right? So one of the things I've learned from, let's say, bringing on or onboarding a new, let's say, higher level person or stakeholder, it's about understanding them first, right? Even if it's something that, let's say, they've been for example, our US operation is now partnering much more with our EU operations, right? So I'm engaging with new stakeholders I haven't engaged with before. And I can't go in there just saying, this is what you need to do, this is how we need to do it, right? It's more like, what are you currently doing? What is the current state of business? let's compare that to how we've done things here. Let's find a good path together, and then let's coach through that new process. Right. And then it's about having the multiple conversations and then tailoring it down to something less. Right. I usually pitch, like when I do something around change management, I usually pitch, let's talk every single week for the next 6 weeks. Let's bring it down to every other week for the next 4 weeks. Then let's get it to a quarterly cadence. Right. And for the meantime, let's get something going so we have a better understanding and we start to build on that trust and that rapport. So it's really about listening before telling, I think, is the biggest takeaway about anything when it comes to new stakeholders. You have to listen to their opinions, thought process, pain points, goals, ideas, and then you can truly understand what to do moving forward.
Yeah, and that takes what I consider someone with a good understanding of self, a good understanding of relationships, and a strong self-esteem, because so many people are just kind of needing to be heard. The insecure, I need to jump in and try and say something or sell something because I'm not comfortable not doing that. That's my thing, and that's a turnoff.
Yeah. And you see that too, especially in sales. Like a lot of people trying to force the opinions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's no, you got to slow it down, listen a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I think that I'm going to make a plug for AI. Don't forget, we're going to do a webinar on AI. We have a webinar AI and the Kirkpatrick model. So make sure you click the link to access it. See, I shamelessly plugged there. And my otter will tell me how much, how the percentage of everybody speaking. And I think that's so valuable, especially when I'm number one, when I'm doing a one-on-one with a teammate, when I'm doing a sales call, it's showing me, hey, Vanessa, how much space are you taking up? And you're not actually doing any of the listening.
Wow.
And so if you can do those things and be honest with yourself, right? I just got into a hot debate on not a hot debate, a very lively conversation on LinkedIn about, stakeholder buy-in and, people don't want to, do evaluation and they don't care about it. And it's like, I call foul on the play a little bit,
Yeah.
Because I can't, maybe you've done the things to have the conversations and to build the relationships. I mean, I can't verify that you have or you haven't, right? Have we really done the work to uncover what is important to that person? And I can tell you, and I mean, you can tell me, you've been a CFO. Have you ever said to someone, I care about finding out how many people got an 80 on that? No, you care about, I'm answering for you, but here I am. You care about how much money it's going to then grow the business, save the business, whatever method you do to get there, you use the method. Just, this is what I need. I need you to save us money. That's it.
100%. Yeah. There's also when it comes to a lot of these things, I believe in the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you should be listening. 20% of the time you should be doing things to encourage talking, right? Not even you talking much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do more to continually to push on someone else's opinions or thoughts coming out, right? So do more of the questioning. I know there's that the Glenn Ross movie around ABC, always be closing type of strategy. I don't think that's that applies to our world anymore, at least definitely not in our business, and definitely not with my mindset. But I really like the ABC acronym, so I've changed it to always be curious. If you change that thought from instead of always be closing to always be curious, then that 80-20 rule applies to you encouraging someone else, sharing what they feel, what they think, what ails them, what's their pains, what do they want to try to accomplish, which then when you take that, it starts to understand, even like the Simon Sinek, the why, understanding the why behind something. That brings out a lot in people. Then you are able to use that define programs that then cater to those problems, right? Or those goals, right? It shouldn't be negative all the time, right? What they want to try to accomplish, right? And then developing program around that's much easier to then get the buy-in to then help roll those programs out to effectively make an impact, right? So if you don't start with listening, you can never, I wouldn't say never, it's going to be a much harder fight to get through, right? It's going to be much more of a struggle. So start off there.
And to your point too, I think when you build that relationship, we see things in the business that are not exactly like we see the warts that are affecting performance. And people say, well, I can't tell them that, their CRM system is awful. I can't tell them that their closers are, their manager of their closers isn't exactly, providing a great environment that anybody wants to work in. As you build that relationship and you build that trust, you get to that place where you can say, look, can we have a sidebar conversation? Can we just have a quick, 5-minute conversation? Here are the challenges that I'm hearing. Here's the proof. Here's the data. Here's what I'm seeing that is actually affecting that outcome. And then you can have that conversation. I think people want to be able to have that conversation without ever building trust.
We were just talking about being bold for the mission and humble of self. I think that comes from a book years ago, Good to Great. And we were agreeing that we want to make heroes of others, not ourselves.
Yeah. And I think I was just mentioning that, climbing to the top without helping others makes being at the peak a solo opportunity or solo moment. Like it's so much more rewarding, I think, to help others along the way and elevate them to where everyone's winning. Everyone is winning at the same time. It just feels a lot better. And you can get more done that way. It's not as lonely as we're road.
I love that. There's a lot of really great books that we have mentioned in this podcast recording. So I'll make sure that we start to track those and maybe create a Kirkpatrick book club because Good to Great is one I think is probably somewhere in the pile here. Also, you mentioned 80-20 and also up here in the pile. But there's definitely a lot of good nuggets we can get out there. And what's so funny, this is not a learning and development.
Say that one more time.
It's not a learning and development book, right? This is talking about business, it's talking about humans, it's talking about how do you connect with others.
Yeah.
Knowing that, so friends, if you are new to this industry or not making any headway, put down the learning books. Put it down. Except for Jim and Wendy's book, that one you can pick up. The Kirkpatrick model books, please pick that up. But put them down for a minute and pick up some of these and learn more about that relationship management and building a business strategy. Get in the mindset of your people, and it's a lot easier to sell your solution.
Oh, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Like if you're learning the different programs and methods, course development, structure, all that is great. But if you don't truly understand the audience you're going to be teaching, it doesn't matter the models, right? You have to be in the head of the subject you're going to change, right? And you have to understand where you can make those changes, right? That's one thing, like going back to, I always think I can be learning and developing and becoming better. But one thing I do lean on is the fact that my experience in the field and working in that, and then taking those into an L&D function and looking at the business operationally has really helped those programs be designed in a much more effective way, right? Knowing the pitfalls, experiencing the pitfalls, feeling the pain from those pitfalls, really helps me then design those programs to help people avoid it.
Yeah, just yesterday I was just on a call with a customer and we're talking about a new program for them, and they wanted to design this, an 8-week program. And as we were talking a little bit more about who the learners are, their day-to-day, all of those sorts of things, we realized that an 8-week program doesn't actually necessarily make sense for them and is not going to actually work. They're not going to, there is a higher chance that the learners will not actually even go through the whole program if we present it in this way. If we can modularize it, if we can do these other things to make it more inclusive in their day-to-day, and then we have a higher chance of them actually going through the whole program. So I think, to your point, getting into the mindset of the person whose heart and mind is trying to change is crucial. Well, Friends, this was a really amazing podcast. And Spencer, I'm going to have to invite you to come up to my new studio in Boca to come do one in person.
Love that.
Which will be so fun. Yes, Jim, surprise, I got a studio. I'm very excited to not be home and having furniture delivery while podcasts are being recorded. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, Spencer, today, your time at the summit. We didn't even get to even talk about the summit. We need a whole nother conversation. In the interim, before you come back on the podcast, where can our listeners find you?
Everybody can connect with me on LinkedIn. As a staffing professional, I live, breathe, and dive LinkedIn. So finding me on LinkedIn, Spencer Lyon, and that's the best place to probably connect with me. Always happen to connect. I know one thing I normally do on a monthly basis, and that's how I met Jim, is try to reach out to people and connect with them, pick their brain, learn from them, and listen, right? I think doing that is great, and I'm always happy to listen to others or give advice. So anybody's happy to connect with me on LinkedIn, just reach out. Excellent. I don't bite hard.
Really good.
I love that. Jim, Spencer, thank you so much for your time today. Friends, I hope you found this conversation as enlightening as I did. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and let us know more about your favorite books that help you with your L&D strategy or your business acumen, because, I'm always looking to spend more money and put it on my bookshelf. Friends, thank you again, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye.